Congress has been negotiating over a possible fourth round of fiscal stimulus for months now. And although the White House has signaled it might be able to go along with some version of the compromise that's been proposed by a bipartisan group of congressmen, it's not clear that there are the votes from either the Republicans or the Democrats to get that deal done. Welcome now Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. He is chairman of the Finance Committee. So, Senator, thank you so much for being with us. You were outspoken when the Democrats basically blocked an effort to get a trimmed down, so-called skinny stimulus through the Senate. How do you feel about the $1.5 trillion proposal from the House side?
Too much, but what's inside is even more disturbing. $500 million for state and local governments to bail out irresponsible fiscal states like Illinois, New York, and California. That would be a big one. Where there's some agreement is continued use of the Paycheck Protection Program, some money for K through 12 education because controlling the virus in these schools is very expensive, and things like that. But the total amount is irresponsible. We still have about several hundred million of the first $3 trillion that went out that hasn't been spent. So if you got several hundred billion that hasn't been spent, why would you think about spending another $1.5 trillion? So I think the Democrats proved a week ago today that they didn't want it in the Senate, and I'll let you ask another question.
No, I was just going to ask specifically on the state assistance. As I understand it, the Democrats were at something like $900 billion. The Republicans were at $100 billion. The proposal came in at like $400 billion, as you said. That's too much. Is anything over $100 billion too much, or is there some leeway there?
Well, I think at one time, at least the White House, and they don't speak for Republicans in total, but it was a little more reasonable that maybe doing what we did in March at $150 billion. But for some of us, when that first $150 billion hasn't been spent, in a lot of states, they might not even know how to spend it. You know, what's the reason of pouring more money in where present money hasn't been spent yet? It just encourages more irresponsible spending.
So as I understand it, that money hasn't been spent in part because there were restrictions placed on what could be done with it. Are you open to relieving some of those restrictions so you can spend the remaining funds?
Yeah. In fact, that was in our bill that we tabled last week of July, and it was also in the skinny, the targeted bill that we voted on last week. And when I say Democrats showed they didn't want to go that direction, they wouldn't even, they said they didn't like it. So if they don't like it, then you get it up and you amend it. They didn't even want to let us get the bill up for discussion and amendment. And the people that are really hurt by not doing that, you know, the enhanced federal unemployment ran out July 31st. The president put another $300 into that through his executive order, and that ran out on September the 8th. So all the Democrats that voted against it a week ago, even bringing the bill up, they were saying to the unemployed people in America, you can't have any more unemployment insurance. And that would have been a real opportunity to continue it till the end of the year.
So talk about that supplemental unemployment insurance, because again, originally it was $600 a week. That's gone away, as you said. There's the interim $300 that's going away. As I understand, the proposal now is to do it at $450 a week, sort of in between, for a fixed period of 8 weeks. Does that sound reasonable to you? I've talked to people from the White House who say they think that might be okay.
I think it's unreasonable. $600, two-thirds of the people unemployed were making more than if they had working. And then even at $300, probably 40% of the people still be making more. We should not have a federal policy that discourages people from working. And number two, the federal government shouldn't be an unfair competitor against all the small businesses that want to get their people back to work when the federal government will outbid the salaries that small business can pay.
Senator Grassley, in your speaking out against what the Democrats did in killing the Senate version of this, you said there are some things in there we really need, including, for example, real assistance to farmers who certainly have had a hard time the last few years. Does that appeal to you to say, you know what, maybe we should go farther than I otherwise would because there are things in there I need to get, for example, for the farmers?
Well, I want to help the farmers with the lowest prices we've had in a long time, and maybe in 10 years because of the virus. Now prices are up just a little bit now that it looks a little better, but we can't to help one group of people, you can't be irresponsible in the others. And I want to tell you how responsible it was with what we wanted to help the farmers. They're 2% of the population. They provide all the food for the other 98%. It was going to be $20 billion out of $300 billion, or out of, it was just a little bit more out of the $3.5 trillion that Pelosi's been pushing. So what farmers are after is a small amount, but you aren't going to be fiscally irresponsible on the other $1.5 trillion. I think another thing needs to be said about what the House proposed 2 days ago, and that is 50 House Republicans and Democrats, bipartisan group, got together and suggested this $1.5 trillion that you're bringing up. And then, you know, they went to Pelosi, and she turned it down because she wants yet more. So it just proves to you that the few left-wing radicals in the House of Representatives are forcing Pelosi to reject something that's got bipartisan support in the House of Representatives.
Senator, for those of us who are not veterans of that building where you are right now, the Capitol of the United States, give us an understanding, because we sort of are puzzled, some of us, to say, is the dispute here, as it were, on the merits, or is it actually political because of the election? How much of this is gamesmanship, trying to figure out who gets credit, who gets blame?
Well, polls show that what happened last Thursday, that the Democrats are paying a bigger price than Republicans, but that doesn't do much for the people that are hurting at the grassroots of America, but it shows that politics is being put above people. And even Pelosi rejecting, under pressure from the real left-wing radicals in the Democratic caucus in the House of Representatives, she's putting politics above what's good for the people when you reject a bipartisan agreement on something that could probably get a majority vote in the House of Representatives.
So let me ask you the unfair question. As you look forward, there's going to be a recess soon because people have to go back and campaign. All the House of Representatives, a third of the Senate. What are the chances of getting fiscal stimulus before the election? From 1 to 100, what do you put it at?
0, unless Pelosi decides she needs something. She's going to have to sit down with the White House. But the White House has been making some statements here recently that would never get hardly any Republicans in the House, in the United States Senate. So this used to be the White House versus Pelosi up until about now. Now the president's coming in and saying we can maybe go to $1.5 trillion. He better be careful of that, because I don't think that bill could get through the United States Senate.
That's really helpful and really interesting. Thank you so much, Senator. And by the way, happy birthday. As I understand, it's a special day for you, and we'd be remiss if we didn't wish you a really great day. I hope it's good for you. That's Senator Chuck Grassley, chairman of the Finance Committee. And coming up tomorrow,